when I was looking at joining the service, I don't know if people know what happened around 1986, but um, the great movie Top Gun came out. It inspired a lot of people at that time, just like the newest movie had come out, and inspired a lot of people to kind of join the service. I thought I wanted to fly. I decided just on a whim to join the Navy. I got into becoming an aviation electronics technician through the service. I spent 12 years in the Navy, was stationed in California and Hawaii. Did a number of deployments overseas in places like Japan and Diego Garcia. I was transitioning out of the service. I made the decision, I had a wife and two kids. After four deployments in 4 years, it was a good time for me to make the transition out of the service, coming up on that 12-year mark. It was a gamble in some cases if you look at it that way. I wasn't sure if it was making the right move, but I decided to make that transition. I was placed by my former company, Orion Talent, with Siemens Energy and Automation as a instructor teaching automation control systems. I did that for about 2 years out of Chicago. Like I said, I'm from Florida. My wife is actually from Southern California. She didn't really want to move to Chicago, as you can imagine. But I convinced her at that time it was the best opportunity for us as I was making the transition out of the military. Love what I did. Really didn't love Chicago as much. It was a great city, but I thought the cost of living would be a little bit better. But so I decided to move back to Southern California. Started looking again. I got contacted by the company that placed me, Orion Talent. They offered me a position. They want to know if I wanted to be a recruiter. And at first I was like, no, I've never been a recruiter. I wasn't a recruiter in the Navy. And they were like, well, we don't hire recruiters. I'm like, well, what do you mean? That's weird. And they said, well, we hire, strong technical background, someone that can work with customers. We really like the instructor profile actually, because working with transition military is way different than maybe putting someone into the service. There's some similarities, but that technical experience was what was important. I got the job, wasn't sure I wanted to do it. I accepted. I was like, you know what? I haven't done this in my career. I've done a lot of things throughout my 12 years in the Navy. I had a great opportunity to work in a lot of diverse fields in the service. What the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm not going to like it. I'm going to go find another job. I feel I was pretty comfortable with my skills, and if it all worked out. For some reason or other, it actually worked out really well. I was with them for 25 years. That's a long time in the military recruiting space, if you guys don't know that. But I love what I did. It was something that clicked with me because I love working with veterans. I love talking to transition military and spouses, helping understand where the military fits into the puzzle of civilian employment and how to match the skills and the experiences and let's call it from an E4 to an O6 and higher, and everyone's background and how that fits into different organizations. So I did that for 25 years, built hiring programs, worked with Fortune 100, 500 companies, helped develop military strategies, was successful through a career as a vice president of recruiting within Orion. And most recently, Korn Ferry convinced me to leave Orion. And it was one of these big moves to build out a military recruiting team under the Korn Ferry brand. And if you don't know much about Korn Ferry, we're global, and one of the largest companies, recruiting companies in the world, global brand. And so they wanted to be able to look at how to infuse military and veterans across their client base, something they've never really done before. And that's why I'm here now.
Wow. Yeah, what a background. And I was looking through your information on LinkedIn and stuff and diving in. I mean, you're right. 25 years at one company. That's definitely outside of the mindset of a military individual who usually transfers every 3 to 4 years to a new duty station. But obviously through that 25 years, you saw a lot of changes over time with veteran recruitment, veteran placement and stuff like that. And obviously as of recently, because you've only been with Korn Ferry for a couple months now, right?
That's correct.
So over your time with Orion, and now obviously in your role at Korn Ferry, what are some of the newest kind of changes that you've seen in the military recruitment space with companies that you've had the ability to work with and place individuals with?
It's very interesting. You're right. 25 years, I've seen a lot. So I came into recruiting and started in January of 2000. It was the boom economy at that point. The internet was just, I know it's funny to say this, but the internet was really just kind of taking off at that time. So there was a lot of growth in the semiconductor space, infrastructure for the internet, those kind of things. 2001 rolls around, the internet bubble bust, and then you go into a massive recession where you went from a boom to a bust cycle, and you go through that period and you see that, we've kind of ride the wave over the years. We've seen it again in 2008 with the housing bubble that happened, and it falls back out. And one of the things I learned as you go through these phases, the recruiting really hasn't changed. It's always stayed the same, and military profiles are always work out well. There's always companies looking to find and hire talent, no matter what the economy is doing. I know there's a lot of changes right now in the economy, and there's a lot of worries that's out there with what's current going on, say, tariffs and those kind of things. But there's always employers that want to hire talent, and they especially want to hire veterans. So even in the I would call it the worst of years, we were still able to find veterans positions. So what I've seen is a shift over the years to models within recruiting companies. Not only my former company, Ryan Talent, but some other ones like maybe Recruit Military, and now what Korn Ferry is trying to do. You've seen a change with how LinkedIn is a big part of the job search now that didn't exist before. When I was a job seeker, before I started with Ryan, it was like Career Mosaic, or we would get DoD list, or we would advertise in Navy Times and those kind of places to get leads that way of veterans. But we were also very proactive on the bases, going into the transition classes, those kind of things as well. So LinkedIn has been a great because you're able to put your profile out there, you're able to engage, and that's where companies now seek out talent is through LinkedIn. Indeed comes along as well, has created a very successful business, good and bad. I'm not necessarily personally a big fan of Indeed for a number of different reasons on my side as a recruiter. But it is a good marketplace as well to post your resume, and they were able to beat out Monster and Career Builder and a couple of the other ones as well. To what you've seen here over the last couple of years, definitely is SkillBridge has come along. Of course, everyone's on this call, and that's been a huge change in this process for employers that it kind of snuck up on companies that they didn't even know what it was. They started hearing the terms. Hiring Our Heroes was really the first one to kind of really do this. And long before anyone even knew it, they had a pretty good market. But what it's done is it's created this pathway for the transition military to obviously be able to seek out employment, get exposure to different companies, because we all know in your last 6 months when you're in the military, you're not doing all that much, or last 90 days of service. You're doing some, not every, some people have to do deployment to the very last day, but typically you're going through this transition process anyway. So why not help you make that transition? So SkillBridge has probably been one of the biggest changes in the market. So employers now are jumping on board with the SkillBridge. They're all trying to get SkillBridge authorities, even though they don't know what it means. It's the new buzzword in the market. And they think that, well, I sign up for SkillBridge, I'm going to have a group of candidates, and I'm just going to start getting candidates. And that doesn't work. And we know, Matt, it doesn't work that way. You really have to be way left of that transition timeline. You got to be upstream. You got to start developing those relationships, those kind of things, and work with, and actually have good programs to work with the service members as well to add value to them, because I think a lot of them have gotten into SkillBridge's free labor in some cases, real. So those have been the major shifts over time, and I like to say there's a lot of noise out there, and when you start seeing it into the economy starts rising, you get a lot of different recruiting firms that do this kind of work, and then during the bus cycles, they all kind of go away because they can't make it. So it's a matter of finding a good company that can help you, that has the power and the reach and exposure, and you should be looking at all your resources that are out there as well. So been the biggest shifts over the years. I don't know if that fully answered your question.
Yeah, no, and that's something we definitely we talk about all the time here at Seven Eagle is the ability to leverage your SkillBridge availability to basically position yourself in a conversation. If you can get into an interview leveraging that SkillBridge and communicating what benefit that is for the employer into that position is massive. right?
Yeah.
Obviously it is free labor, and part of what we do here at 70 Eagle is partner with those companies that aren't SkillBridge approved to and then help facilitate those placements into their open positions, which has been a huge success for a lot of our candidates and our military folks getting into those companies that just are not affiliated with SkillBridge or have no idea what it is. You know,
Well, and they don't want to go through the DoD process either. Let's be
who does, right? Yeah,
right.
actually, it's funny you bring that up because I had a recent conversation with that, and they're like, "We have no desire to do this. We
Yeah.
heard about you. We'd rather do it this way because because a lot of it, and this, is manning.
Yeah.
Now you have to put someone dedicated to doing that process full time. If you want to build it in a way that you need to get your voice out there and your name out there and compete with the 8,000 other companies that are a part of SkillBridge.
I was very successful. So when at Orion, and we're doing it here at Korn Ferry, when I was at Orion, I built a team because I took over and built a base. Well, we had a base team that was our old CEO had looked ahead and said, "Hey, we're going to start putting recruiters boots on the ground on military installations.
Yeah.
So to be in the top classes, to be in the skill bridge classes." And so I built a team through SkillBridge.
Yeah.
I had 15 people that I hired direct that came through the SkillBridge program, and they were fantastic. And it's a great model to be able to use if you know how to use it successfully.
Right, right. And you brought up something too that we get a lot of questions about, especially from our folks that are in the kind of the Intel space, right? Have done that for, 20 plus years, and they're not used to getting themselves out there on LinkedIn and getting connected because you just don't do it, right? Depending on your job, if you're in a SAP program and stuff like that, you don't put yourself out there. You don't put your information out there because it can be used, potentially against you. And obviously with LinkedIn, we push LinkedIn a lot because it's a part of the process to get engaged and get connections and stuff like that. What would you say to kind of help those individuals kind of bridge that gap between, obviously their military experience and their background to putting themselves out there and getting connected through LinkedIn and with employers and stuff?
I think in some cases, yeah, and I understand the ones with the TSSCI clearances and with the highly cleared, right? It makes it really challenging for sure. There is a way to maybe in some generality be able to build that profile and build a presence on there because the reality is you need to be on that platform. Um, because in theory, for recruiters, the best person to find is the person that's not looking in some cases, right? So there are employers kind of mining profiles, looking for keywords of things and carrying that into a conversation. Of course, we do that as a recruiting firm as well. I was on a call yesterday about someone looking for an IT administrator, for example, with an ERP system as well. So we're going out and looking. It's like, how is there someone in the military that's worked with this kind of ERP infrastructure, right? So you can do in some generalities in itself, but it also helps to network
Yeah.
and to follow other, follow companies that are in the space that you're trying to get into and be engaged in that conversation as well. So and I'm learning this even from my years of age right now, but I'm learning this on LinkedIn and stuff as well. Is like if you start following companies like Anduril, for example, if you're really interested in getting into something like that, you see their posts, you see what they're talking about, be engaged in that conversation. That will flow down into the organization as well. So can't be negative. There's like you can't say Anduril sucks.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and it's an interesting dilemma, and for a very small subset of our individuals, right? Because that have that experience, and but taking that first step, all right, getting their information out there and engaging with fellow. We always say connect with veterans, right? I mean, is
Mhm.
if you can connect with fellow veterans out there, because typically we want to help our community build and grow and be successful. So start there, right? Um,
Plus, as you know, the game of LinkedIn is the bigger your network, the more you're searchable, right? And so by having more first, second, and third degree connections on LinkedIn makes you a lot more accessible to people to be able to find you. Even though we have nice tools like LinkedIn Recruiter, I've noticed that if I hire someone brand new and they don't have the same level of network and connections, their search features are way less than what I'm able to pull, even through LinkedIn Recruiter, which is supposed to give you full access, but it really doesn't. So the bigger your network is in the veteran space and in the right industries, whatever you're trying to be, the more exposure you will get in the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to dive in real quick too, because obviously, LinkedIn is a big piece of kind of what we do and get people connected with either fellow veterans or companies and stuff like that. And from your perspective, using LinkedIn Recruiter and what
Like
you
some
see on that
apples.
side of things, what is as far as a veteran, what's one of the best things they can do to kind of help set up their LinkedIn account, their profile to be visible by folks like you to get connected with these opportunities that
Déjame
I think what I
poner
noticed
el
the
niño para
most
asegurarme que
is
lo
there
tiene.
are it's hard to create a profile in some cases, or you create a profile trying to make it look very civilian oriented, which is great, but it's too general and you talk in very ambiguous terms, led teams, directed people, what without any real substance maybe behind that. So it's okay to be specific with the military and areas that you've been in. Yes, you need to demilitarize some of the language that may not understand. Well, it was fourth ID or whatever your background, but you can talk into very generally how you led teams with this amount of logistics on deployments with whatever very specific things that stand out. It's really hard to look at someone. I look for profiles. I know when I'm looking for a profile. I don't really key. I'm looking for an officer in an artillery, or I'm looking for an electronics technician, or I'm looking for power gen, or what. So, and then I start looking at their profile, and I understand based on this profiling, but I'll read someone's profile and I can't figure out what they've done. I can't figure out what they do in the service, and it's too generalized for me that I may just move on from there.
oh wow. Yeah, yeah, and that's a good thing to keep in mind too, because like you said, maybe I mean we talk about building out your expertise, your experience section, kind of putting in stuff in there, and you're saying if it's too vague, you may move on to the next person, right? Because obviously you have very limited time, and so that's I appreciate that insight as well for people kind of expanding out their experience a little bit more on the direction they want to go career wise, whether that's whether they're pivoting or whatnot. That's I appreciate that as well. Jose, I see your hand up. I want to give you an opportunity to ask your question.
Hey Jay, how's it going? Name's
Good.
Jose. I heard you talk about like you were trying to get into TAPS and to have almost like a direct line, right, of military candidates. I'm just curious, like, did that work out for you, or like were there limiting factors or walls that you hit, and like what were some of those? I'm just
Uh,
interested
ev-
in.
100%. Every base is different. That's the one thing that you learn, first of all, and Matt, you probably know this as well. Every single base is its own fiefdom empire type of thing. And it depends on the base and the tap manager of what they think and their perception of, say, military recruiters and other ones that are out there trying to help veterans make the transition out. Some of them have this very old school mentality of, well, headhunters want something from you. They're going to charge you all this money. Don't use them and that kind of stuff. And usually they were hired through coming around the military, so they've never been exposed to the civilian job market to do some of those things. So some bases actually love it and they allow you to come in and do the transition classes, allow you to engage with the candidates and be a part of SkillBridge. And there are some that are just absolutely stiff arm, absolutely will not talk to you, won't let you in, won't let you do anything. And it's different from base to base, branch to branch, and what you're able to do for sure. And then depending on the base and how popular it is, the harder obviously it is. So, like, I'll give an example. Fort Hood in Texas, there's so many employers trying to get access to that transitioning pool out of Fort Cavazos or Hood that TAP program is very, very strict on not allowing a lot of employers in there anymore. Either we were told by Fort Stewart when I was in Orion, absolutely not, don't even bother calling. They won't even let us into a job fair to attend a job fair. Where there's other ones that absolutely will do anything to help their veterans. So Yes, it's a constant grind of getting to know and getting comfortable with the tap people, but there is resistance depending on the branch and the base for sure.
So
Yes.
were you able to accomplish like what you wanted with like tapping into some of these qualified candidates? Because it sounds like it's counterproductive if like TAPS isn't allowing you guys to even go to job fairs.
We were, because the people I hired through SkillBridge and stuff were traditionally I would go, look to find a certain profile, probably a retiree coming out of that installation that's been there for 20 years out of Fort Hood, for example, that can go in and talk to the TAP coordinator, build that relationship over time. And a lot of the things I noticed with TAP was it's about showing up and showing up consistently and being there consistently, sending them job postings consistently. A lot of recruiters will do a one and done, like, hey, let me in your TAP class, and they disappear for 6 months until they want something else. And the TAP people want to know that you're going to be a part of what they're trying to do. And the more consistent you are with that, the more likely they're eventually allowed to, will let you start participating. I would go sit in Naval Station San Diego in their top center, big table area right in front of the desk, and I would go sit there every Thursday, all day long, break my laptop out. I would sit there and I go, if you have someone that wants to talk to somebody about transitioning, I'll be happy. I don't care who it is. I'll be happy to talk to them. But I was consistent to do that over time, and you build that reputation, and the tap people would see that as well, which started allowing it as well. So it is counterproductive. Trust me, it's a fight that goes on in the recruiting space. And employers even know that if they try to get into tap, how difficult it actually is to be able to put your word out there. And I get it. There's so many companies trying to do this all the time. Everybody thinks that tap is the holy grail of transition material, which it is. But what are you going to do with those people? You got to be able to serve the greater good of the top class, not one person that's going to fill one opening for you. So they want to make sure that you're able to service and help all the veterans that you're able to do, or at least give them some guidance versus your own specific need at that time. And that's the challenge that the TAP centers face.
Yeah. No, 100%. Good question, Jose. I mean, you bring up a great point, and you're right. We've hit those goals as well, trying to get into tackless. I mean, I'm out here in Augusta with Fort Gordon again, and they love it. They invite companies all the time to their career servicing on Fridays, to come speak to their classes every week. But then we've had other issues with, other services or even other Army bases saying absolutely not, right? So it is a hit or miss to try to get that information out there as best as possible to showcase what you have for a wider audience of individuals that are leaving the service. And sometimes, like you said, it kind of takes that, all right, I'll just go sit and, introduce myself and build that relationship with them and see that, hey, I can benefit your folks if you allow this to happen, right? Um, but
I'll give you one more example before we move on, Matt, as well. So since I've been with Korn Ferry has something that's called Korn Ferry. It's like Korn Ferry Connect, I believe it is. Anyways, it's a free platform that they're giving out to veterans that has you can sign up for free coaching, for example, career coaching. It has thousands of videos on there for skills and if you want to learn PMP, what all these different things out there. If you want it has like an AI interview prep, all these. It's absolutely a free tool. It's actually, I was very surprised that they give this away. And we've been talking to TAP centers about, hey, anyone can use this platform. It's something that Korn Ferry wants to kind of give back to the military community and let them have access to this capability. No questions asked, no needing information, whatever. It's a full, absolutely free tool. And you cannot believe the stiff arm that we are getting on even trying to provide a free service of anything because they're like, oh, what do you guys want? Or you guys want something? Like, no, we're not, don't want anything. So we're trying to give stuff. It's hard. You'd be surprised how hard it is to give stuff away.
yeah, no, I could definitely, we could definitely relate to that a lot for sure on that perspective. And I appreciate what you guys are trying to do. That's why we love having folks and partnering with various different companies that are in the veteran space trying to give back. to that community and give them the resources, the tools that they need to be successful on the outside. So I appreciate the efforts that you guys are putting in to deliver that to folks. So with Korn Ferry and with your position with Korn Ferry now, obviously most of our folks are on SkillBridge now through our academy, trying to get connected with these partner companies, trying to get their first, kind of foot in the door off to a company. How do you guys run your SkillBridge program to get people connected with either with Korn Ferry positions or with your partners?
So I'll take the same with Korn Ferry. So we're able to bring on through our own SkillBridge program or a partner that someone wants to kind of learn to be in, that wants to say get into military recruiting or into recruiting in general. We have a training program that's established for that, where we teach a lot of the tools, and I could tell you probably a lot more tools even I had in my explode at Orion Talent, because we're able to teach into Salesforce now and some other proprietary things that Korn Ferry has. Plus, we teach Indeed, we teach LinkedIn Recruiter, we teach other platforms just kind of in general that are very good skills for anybody that wants to be in recruiting, that you're going to use in your career as even as a civilian recruiter, maybe for an organization. You need to start learning some of those software tools and then methodology and then those kind of things as well. So that we've developed a training program to teach that, and then how we do market mapping, for example, when how we do professional search and how we go find, how do you get access to executives and those kind of things as well. So that's kind of some things that we do. So we are able to bring on SkillBridges through it's called an intermediary or directly through our own SkillBridge in itself. And not every, trust me, I didn't think your lifelong goal is not to be a recruiter. Trust me, I didn't one day feel that, hey, I have this lifelong dream of being a recruiter. You just kind of falls into it. It's something that you love doing once you start doing it, of course. So some people love it, some people don't like it. Some people like the sales side of it and working with companies and clients. They like to be engaging. They may not like the cold calling or contact sport of it, but that's a part of developing business and those kind of things. So we're able to, whoever would be interested in, and as we work with SkillBridge, be able to look at, hey, since we're remote, we have the ability across our organization to do SkillBridge. And we do have offices that people do work in today, but I'm fully remote and a lot of my team is fully remote. So we're able to do that. And as far as employers go, the one thing that I can tell you in 2 short months or so that I've been with Korn Ferry, the reach, the ecosystem of Korn Ferry is something I didn't even understand. Even after 25 years with Orion, I thought that maybe we were competitors. I don't think we're competitors in itself. The amount of high level executives that they place on any given day, they place full on boards and CEOs and COOs, and they do a lot of retained search. That's why they want to kind of infuse this military now, is because as these CEOs and COOs get hired, they want to be successful in their organization. Well, what's one of the fastest ways to be successful is bring in talent that's really going to make a game changer in your business, right? So that's why we're trying to do that. So I would tell you the Korn Ferry website is not the easiest to navigate if you've ever tried it. Trust me, I tried it as a candidate when I was going through the interview process. I like to test things out because I want to see what our flow through would look like, and if you were a candidate, how quickly you got to a recruiter and how to get evaluated. I was not impressed with Korn Ferry's flow through, if you will. Ryan was very quick, but here it's not easy to navigate for a number of different reasons, and that's something I'm working on currently, is to how to fix that piece to make it easy for the service member to get exposure access, and then how to navigate across our organization to the right people. Because we have for example, we have sectors. We have an HR sector. We have a logistics sector. We do energy and automation. We do in a different sector. We do data centers and all these kind of things. So how to navigate where these openings are and who's responsible for them. Because in some cases, in almost all cases, the postings may not even be live on anybody's website, that it's word of mouth or it's confidential searches and those kind of things as well. So it's not the easiest to navigate, trust me, right now. So, but the first step, if anyone's interested, you can just contact me. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, or I share my profile and stuff with everybody, and then I can help navigate maybe who to introduce you to, what sector it would be, those kind of things.
Yeah. No, I'll actually drop your LinkedIn right now to the chat for everybody. That's your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Obviously, connect with Jay, ask him the questions. Great resource as well. Get you connected with a number of opportunities. I was sitting on your guys' website as well, just kind of fumbling through and trying to locate positions within the U.S. remote, because a lot of folks are looking for remote, and I know some of those jobs are kind of going away. They're shifting back, and it's kind of a weird situation, right? With certain companies out there that they're trying to bring back to the work, actual buildings, but a lot of companies they still have and maintain some of those remote opportunities as well. And as you're probably well aware of, that remote, if you can get a remote job, that's the best thing since sliced bread in most cases, what people are looking for. So, but if you've got any questions for Jay, please raise your hand. I've got a couple more questions for you, but if you do have questions, go ahead and hit the raise hand button, and I'll give you a shout to ask your question, whether it be about Korn Ferry itself, whether about his background, his experience. But no, I appreciate the insights on Korn Ferry, and obviously you guys Korn Ferry has been around for quite some time, and I appreciate what you are specifically doing in the veteran community, getting those people engaged and getting them connected with opportunities, whether that be at Korn Ferry or with your partner companies and stuff like that. But looking back over your career, and obviously you transitioned back in, was it late 90s, right? What's one thing that you've noticed, or one piece of advice that, with our service members here that are currently going through the transition process, what is one piece of advice, if you could give anything, say, hey, this is what you should be doing as you transition?
It's kind of counterproductive to the remote piece of it. The remote wasn't obviously a thing when I was transitioning on the service. That was, COVID changed all of that, and it became cool to work from home kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my number one thing I tell a lot of people, and it's really hard because you've moved around throughout your whole career, and everyone's going to tell you, is the ability to look is location matters the most in the job. You can have the best experience in the best job, those kind of things. But if you want to live in a small town in eastern Montana, there may not be an industry there that supports that, or employment, and there may not be any remote opportunities to be able to support that. And there's less remote opportunities going away. Only certain specialized fields can be remote right now. Like IT still, recruiting, things you work on the phone. Project management to some degree can be remote, but you're going to end up traveling. And then that's the other thing. You're like, well, I don't want to travel. It's like, well, if you're going to live in Eastern Montana and you're going to work remote, you're going to have to jump on an airplane and fly somewhere to go do parts of your job, kind of thing. And there's employers and there's companies that cluster in certain markets as well. So if you notice, the data center markets right now are really big in Dallas and Phoenix, and they're really big in Columbus, Ohio, and DC, right? There's very specialized markets that exist for certain industries and stuff. So the more open you are on location, the better off, the more opportunities, just simple math. Like when I was getting out, I was wide open on location. I would go anywhere, I would do anything. Like I said, I was like, I got a wife and two kids. I need the best career if I'm going to make this move out of the Navy. I was way more open than my spouse. She was not open at all to that concept. And at that point, she was like, "Oh, we can move back in with my parents." And I'm like, "There is not a chance in this world I'm getting out of the Navy after 12 years and moving in with your parents. I'm just not wired that way." And I wanted the best. I looked at Siemens in Chicago as the best opportunity for my career. And it truly was, even though that was in Chicago. It was 2 years to get back to where I ultimately wanted to be as well. So it's location, probably the biggest advice. If you're really strict on location, it makes it really hard, not impossible. But the more open to considering opportunities, once you start talking to companies, you can be surprised of like, oh wow, I would love that job. Like I would want to work for them. I think I can make Dallas work kind of thing. So talk to employers, see what's out there for you. Be open-minded to location. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a job. You can say no. Like no one's forcing you in that job. You just explore your opportunities and see what's going to fit you.
Wow. That's such a good point. And that's actually something I wanted to bring up because, obviously you were in California, North Island, right? With your last duty station in the Navy. And then you move basically across the country to Chicago to take the position to get your basically that foot in the door, right? To get
Yep.
the job. But I'm assuming that when you took the job with Siemens, you weren't like, oh, hey, I'm going to do 2 years here and then I'm going to move back. I'm going to do something else. What was obviously with Siemens being an opportunity for you to pursue and having to move, halfway across the country to take it? What was that conversation like, and what ultimately led to you saying, yep, you know what, this is going to be the best for me moving forward? Um, and did you ever think like, hey, at some point, I know we want to come back to California. I know we want to be back here. So I'm going to do this for as long as I can and then look for other opportunities.
So when I looked at Siemens, I said, "Hey, this is a worldwide company. It's a global brand. Not only do they have a presence, obviously here in the U.S., they're a European company, but based on the structure of that division of Siemens, they had branch offices in every major market in the U.S. So they manufacturing, marketing, all that was handled out of Buffalo Grove. Instructors, all that was out of Buffalo Grove, but each office supported its own individual market." And I knew that if for some reason I did not like Chicago, I would have the opportunity potentially within Siemens to move to any other city in the US I wanted to move to, because it had that kind of reach, whether it be San Diego or back home to Florida or wherever else that we would want to go at that time. So that's one of the things that I considered. And plus I looked at the experience I was going to gain, and it's not where I was going to be today or in 1 year, where I was going to be in 3 to 5 years and what my resume, my experience would look like. I wanted a big player on my resume initially, like a Siemens, but I also wanted the experience and to make it more marketable in 3 to 5 years. If I decided I was going to look for another job, how's that going to look in the market again, right? So if I would have gotten out and this is not bad in any sort of way. But if I got out with a strong background in electronics, but I would become, I don't know, an Amazon driver or win in the distribution as a production supervisor, which would have been fine. But then my career would have been down that path. And I didn't want that path. I wanted to keep it going a different direction, which was electronics and automation. And I knew Siemens could provide that for me if I was willing to suck it up. And I traveled 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks out of the month, and that's another reason that it was challenging. But it gave me a lot of exposure. It taught me a lot about the civilian world, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. But that experience in that 2 years has helped me every day for 25 years at Orion, because I can talk about programmable logic control systems and how they work in a power plant, how it works in a refinery, those kind of things, and be able to have those conversations with clients and those kind of things as well. The challenging part, the one thing that I saw was, which I didn't know, and ultimately why I left Siemens when I moved back to San Diego, was I was in corporate. And then sometimes it could be career suicide, right? To go from corporate down to a branch. Usually you go the other way, you go from a branch to corporate. And my manager at the time convinced me that it would be career suicide to go to a branch. Looking back, I don't think it probably would have been, but she had convinced me at the time that to not do it. And I was like, well, I'm going to move back. My wife doesn't like me traveling 2 to 3 weeks a month. I don't want to live here forever in Chicago. And my only career then at corporate is to stay in Chicago. And I don't plan on staying here the rest of my life. So therefore, I might as well go do what we needed to do. And that's why we moved back to San Diego.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, I appreciate that insight on that perspective and get your foot in the door and stuff like that. Because obviously what you did at Siemens led to your positions with Orion, and obviously that was a long career at Orion Talent, and now obviously you've moved on to Korn Ferry. But yeah, what an inspiring journey that you've been on, and I appreciate all the insights that you've been able to provide our students here and our transitioning service members that are looking for their first opportunity. And then we get a lot of questions about that, right? About, do I stay here? Do I open myself up to opportunities to move across country if need be? Obviously, with you had a family at the time, which brings in a whole new conversation, right? Because it's not just you, and we've got several people in that position where they're retiring out of the military. They've bought a house. They're firmly planted in a school district and stuff like that. It's really tough to pick that stuff up and move it if need be. And it's definitely worth a conversation, though, because certain things can lead to much bigger plans in the future for sure. But I appreciate that insight that journey that you took as well in that. But again, like if you guys have a question for Jay, I've loved our conversation, Jay. I've loved the insights that you've been able to pour into this group of individuals. And I appreciate your service to the Navy and our country and what you are continuing to do in the veteran space in the military and giving back to our community to help them out.
Yeah. I would tell you, they always say you kind of learn something a lot of people ask me about recruiting, and I was, like I said from the very beginning, I wasn't sure I wanted to get into recruiting. It's not your lifelong goal to be a recruiter. First couple of days I got into doing this work, I hated it. I didn't like calling people, cold calling people, or calling them and just having and learning how to have that conversation cold and create rapport and credibility very quickly, as you probably know, Matt, and how you have to do that kind of work. But one of the things that really stood out to me, and I really thought about it, was I thought back when I was doing it. I looked back and said, what made me successful as a instructor, what really worked was you never wanted to stand in front of that room and not know what you're talking about. So that clicked with me. So I then every day started realizing like, hey, I want to be a subject matter expert. When I go into a conversation with a job seeker, I want to know the market. I want to know where they fit, those kind of things. Once I learned that and remembered, thought back to my military career, that skyrocketed my experience as well. So there are things that you've done in the military that will absolutely help skyrocket your career if you think back to very basic terms like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's another question that gets brought up a lot is the conversion of military experience expertise to civilian, because obviously it's not like this. It's not even. And a lot of times, often your military experience, although great, and depending on the level that you were at and the longevity you had in it, sometimes it's more like this, where the civilian sides, what they're looking for is a little bit different, and there's a disconnect between that experience of what you gained in the military versus the civilian side. So walking across into a similar a lateral position in the civilian side may not happen. So we talked about location, but also position dependent as well on your career path and your choice of industry.
And I'll make one more point before you open up to questions. I think if there's any that you would like me to answer. One thing that I noticed a lot through the interview process with job seeker military transitioning members is you don't talk a lot about what you've done. You really kind of bottle that in, or you think it's everyday work. Like, well, that's just what I do every day. So employers, especially ones that don't really fully understand the military, love stories. Like, hey, we were off the coast of Afghanistan and we had this problem on our aircraft carrier. We were in this area and we were doing like you bottle that up and you think, well, we worked 16 hours and we had to do this to order to get this to work right. They don't hear those kind of stories and they don't understand the time frame and the pressure it is to be on a submarine or a ship or in the desert and how to operate with no equipment or lack of people. No, all the different scenarios that you think is a part of your everyday military life, you need to be talking about that in the interview process. Don't hold that back. Talk about it. Live with that. That's fantastic. That's gold for employers.
Wow. No, actually, what, you bring up a fantastic point. You're right, because sometimes you have to suck it up. Kind of the phrase that I was told in the military, which they definitely don't say anymore, is "shut up and color." Right? Is, hey, you've got a job to do. Just go do it and get it done. And you're like you said, 16 hours on certain things if you're deployed overseas and stuff like that. It's just the name of the game. but that commitment is something that our military folks definitely bring to the table, to be able to persevere through those obstacles, those long hours to get a mission completed, because that's what's asked of you to do, which you definitely don't see on the civilian side. You're not going to get that same experience on the civilian side, because it just doesn't happen. That'd be
Oh,
a lot of overtime.
I remember working at Siemens. It was the first thing that really caught me off guard working at Siemens was at 4:15 or 4:30 every day, there'd be a group of people that would stand up, grab their stuff, and stand by the door. I was like, hey, well, there's a lot of veterans that work there. And I asked the guy, hey, what is this? He goes, oh, they're waiting to leave. I'm like, well, first of all, why don't they just leave? Like, he goes, well, it's not 5 o'clock. I'm like, well, then why don't they work? Like, it was a weird concept to see that mentality, that work mentality did not exist like you would in the military of like, you're gonna do this and you're gonna get the job done, you're gonna do it at whatever it's gonna take. And they were like, nope, it's almost time. I gotta go.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It takes me 30 minutes to pack up my desk and my stuff together. Yeah. No, I mean, it's great. And that's another thing that we can leverage, as long as you can be able to communicate that. And telling those stories. Thank you for saying that. Because that does hit home to a lot of different, and it brings a new perspective to civilian employers and that are looking to hire you through the interview process, because you can tie those things that happen to you, whether it be on a ship out in the Mediterranean or in the Gulf, or before deployed to some desert location or whatever you're doing. You can tie that experience and what you did to how you accomplished a task, how you worked with a team, how you developed something new to fulfill a mission requirement on a very truncated timeline, right? Something very unique to the military that we're able to communicate. And that's something we can leverage as well as SkillBridge to get into that position. So, no, Jay, I loved our conversation. I thank you so much for being here. I hope to connect with you. I think I sent you a connection on LinkedIn already as well, because I'd love to pick your brain about helping our community out more. I'd love to have you back as well.
I love
For
doing
this process.
I'd be happy to come back. I love doing, as you can tell, it's something I'm passionate about talking about. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jay. I wish you all the best today and this week. And like I said, let's continue to stay in contact. And I'm going to send you a note here after we get off, and see if we can make something happen long term and get you scheduled out for another time to come back.